I've decided that Sundays are not only for helping those that aren't having any luck with projecting or shifting, it's also a time to propose different theories and examine them. Welcome to Sunday. It is June 12th. It is about 1 p.m. And today I want to talk about frequency. But two quick things before I get into frequency. First, I would like to welcome all of those folks coming in from Amino and continuing to come in from that particular site. I appreciate you taking the time to stop by and listen, and I am overwhelmed by the kindness being shown to me in that community. I wanted to give a kind of special shout out to Reality 101. The post created by this particular individual on Amino was absolutely amazing, and yeah, I'm not sure if I recall thanking this individual last Sunday or the Sunday before, but again, thank you so much. Second, I wanted to quickly mention that I do a fictional podcast that I produced called Naui of the Lightning Tribe, and I've been doing it now for quite some time. I don't always mention this particular podcast on the channel because it is not necessarily focused on astral projection, and it also is not necessarily focused on shifting as well. For those of you who are joining me from the shifting community, this is not a fictional podcast focused on shifting, but as time has gone by, and especially as I've gotten into the second season, I'm on season 2 episode, I'm creating episode 8 right now. As I've gotten into it further, I've found myself taking certain or adding certain experiences, certain elements from my experiences into the podcast. So, you know, if you are curious, I will leave a link, and if you'd like, go check it out. But it's been a labor of love for me. It's been a lot of hard work, and yeah, if you do check it out, I certainly hope you enjoy it. So let's get to frequency and why it's important to both astral projection and shifting. And again, for the folks that have been with me for a while, I am doing these videos on Sundays for both communities and really trying to help both communities, and hoping, truly hoping, that I can bring the reality shifting community and the astral projection community together, because I believe that both communities share a lot that is not talked about. So it's one of my goals. So I believe that frequency is important to both astral projection and shifting. Also, what I believe is it might be possible, once one learns to control frequency, or vibrational frequency, I should say, as I don't want to confuse people. It's talked about more in astral projection, I think, the ability to be able to change one's vibrational frequency. Once one is able to change that frequency at will, one might be able to change the experience they're having. Like, what I'm proposing is going from, let's say you were astral projecting, to going into a reality shift, into a physical reality, then going from a physical reality back to your astral body. That is what I am proposing. This could all be done instantaneously with a single thought. And by the way, I know it sounds out there, but please, if you are intrigued, continue listening. I think that one technique of changing frequency is movement. And let me explain and explain what I'm saying by movement. When I first started to go beyond body / reality shift, there was a sense of movement that I would have when I was going to these different realities. So in the beginning, let me start from the beginning. When I would reach that place, that sweet spot that I talk about a lot, the place between being asleep and awake, and the platform for which I've said where I think that just about anything is possible. Once I would reach that space, I would begin to feel that movement. I might feel myself roll to the left as if I'm rolling off my bed, or roll to the right. Interesting enough, when I was just starting to talk about the whole beyond body thing, I was always afraid when I would feel myself rolling to the left or to the right that I'd roll right off my bed. And it was always this fear that once I felt myself coming off, that I was going to hit the floor, and I never did. I would just kind of come down, very slowly, kind of, and then I would start to move forward from there. But what if all of these sensations that I was feeling, this movement, like I would go through this movement, and then I would travel for a while, and then at some point I would stop, and then the darkness would lift, and then I would be in said reality. I'd be in whatever reality I happened to end up in. But what if the sensations of movement I was feeling was actually me changing from one frequency to another? Perhaps my mind, and the human mind in general, has perhaps a difficult time grasping the process of changing frequencies. What my mind did perceive was this movement traveling from one place to another. My mind could grasp the movement from one spot to another, but not necessarily the change in frequency. So my mind did what it needed to do to understand what was happening. And for my mind, changing frequency meant travel. And so I was able to, in my mind, in my head, grasp that, at least that concept, traveling from one place to another. But in reality, I am, changing frequency. And so, quite interesting. Another technique beyond traveling was, these things, by the way, these things just started happening. And I believe that a part of the reason that it wasn't something that I willed into existence and said, okay, now I'm going to change the technique of what I do. These things, I think, were kind of built in a way. Our spirit beings are obviously have been around far longer than these bodies have. And there are things that are stored in there, and those things, I suppose, were just waking up. But this technique was, so I talked about being able to see the things as if I was looking through a window in the very beginning. And I've talked about this on this channel. Before I started actually going from one reality to the next, I'd close my eyes and see almost as if I was either looking through a window, or perhaps looking or watching a film of some sort, just kind of unfolding there. And I would see all kinds of different things. Sometimes things that looked or appeared to be animated, sometimes things that appeared to be sort of physical. Now, one of the first times I was able to do this particular technique was when I was in this subterranean, perhaps underground place, and I saw these rocks and stuff. And I felt as if my perception was that I was reaching out with my hand to touch one of these rocks that I saw. what I understand, I think intellectually, was that my mind was reaching out and to some degree. And once I touched a rock, or I suppose any object in that specific reality, I suddenly became a part of it. I was suddenly there. I was suddenly standing there as if I was suddenly physically standing there. So it went from me being an observer, just watching it as an observer, to actually being a part of it. And this transition was instantaneous. The second that I touched the object, the rock in this example, I was suddenly a part of this specific reality. Another example of this was when I entered this Wild West reality that I went to, and I felt as if I was on a train. I was in movement, and I could see this fence that seemed to be through a window, and I reached out. The second that I touched the fence, I became a part of the reality. Not only that, but the train seemed to just stop, and suddenly I was able to get off of this said train, and then I was there in this reality. Again, what if the act of touching the fence or touching the rock or touching any object was my mind's way of translating the fact that I was changing my frequency to match that of the Wild West reality? Thus, the Wild West reality became my reality. I believe, by the way, that frequency equals reality. So when you change the vibrational frequency, you change your reality. When you change, and I should be more specific, your own vibrational frequency, you change your reality. Once you reach that frequency, whatever it happens to be, that reality is your reality, at least momentarily. But I'm not just talking about physical realities. For the projectors listening out there, the astral projectors, what if you could change your vibrational frequency from astral body to physical body in another reality with a single thought? And for the shifters, what if you could change your frequency while you're in a different reality to match the frequency of your astral body, thus changing your form and being able to be on the astral plane? Again, these things are happening in a split second. You have the thought, and suddenly you change from one form to the next. I know what I'm proposing is radical. It may sound crazy to you, but again, if you're intrigued, keep listening, because the theory I'm proposing might just be the key to shifting from one experience to the next effortlessly. That's astral projection, again, to beyond body / reality shifting, then back. Just think about it. Think about the access that you could have if you had that ability. And the experience that I believe provides some evidence for this, again, these are all just my theories, but and the experience that I believe that provides some evidence is something that I don't think I've shared with this channel. It was a brief experience, but one that illustrates the shift from one form to another. There was an experience I had a while back where I was pure consciousness and I was floating around this room. By pure consciousness, I didn't sense that I had a body of any kind, not astral or physical. I moved simply through the power of thought alone. And from what I recall, the room was bare, no furniture, and I don't believe there was a window. There was only a single door, and I do recall that there was just a doorknob as well. I suppose, thinking back, that this is what perhaps a camera might feel like, at least in my mind now, thinking about it, that this might be what it feels like to actually be a camera, a living camera, if, you know, a camera could be alive. I moved toward the door and tried to go through it, but I couldn't. So I hovered, just staring at it. At one point it opened, but what was strange about it was that when it did open, it opened not from the side of the doorknob, but it opened from the other side, which was very, very strange. And when it opened, I saw just a glimpse of a hand that seemed to be reaching out and opening the door, and it seemed to be stretching like an impossible stretch. A human hand wouldn't have been able to stretch that long. The place, if you're curious, was just some industrial place. But the thing that's important was when I started to come out of the door, because finally when the door opened, I started walking out. My form changed. I went from pure consciousness to feeling as if I had a physical presence, as if I had a physical body. And the change was instantaneous. It was quite amazing. And I also remember that there was some man, and there was this place that looked like the kind of place you would work on vehicles of some sort, like a place where mechanics would be. And this place had this huge tractor that had been torn apart, and this guy who was covered in grease was working on it. And I believe he just may have looked up at me, sort of acknowledged me, and just kept working at what he was working on, fixing this thing. And again, this place was pretty much like an industrial place. Looked like there might be a lot of mechanical shops and other things where people worked on things. It was quite interesting. I returned shortly after, leaving the place that I was in, and that was it. I would be very curious. I'm almost afraid to ask people to let me know what they think in the comments. I don't know if people are going to think I'm crazy or not. I'm not sure, but again, this is a place where I will share some of my crazy theories and talk with you about them, and you know, I'd be interested to know what you think. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on this journey with me, and until next time, take care.